Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So we will start with quote of the day, and they planned, and Allah also planned, and Allah is the best of planners. Today I will be presenting on the topic of anemia, and I am Dr. Temia Ayub. I am FCPS training under the kind supervision of Professor Dr. Saira Afzal, Dean Institute of Public Health. So this is the outline of today's presentation. And we will start with the definition of anemia, how to classify, followed by pathophysiology, etiology, signs and symptoms, diagnosis, levels of prevention, global burden and national burden of anemia, recent advances, and at the end, we will be doing a multiple choice questions. So these are the learning outcomes of today's lecture. So what is anemia? Anemia is one of the most common global health problems. It affects preschool children, adolescent girls, pregnant women, and low resource settings most severely. Major contributing to maternal morbidity, poor pregnancy outcome, impaired cognitive development, reduced productivity, whereas it is highly preventable and treatable. So, by the definition of World Health Organization, anemia is a condition in which the number of red blood cells or their oxygen carrying capacity is insufficient to meet the body's needs. For the diagnostic threshold or HP levels are, for men it is less than 13 gram per deciliter. For non-pregnant women it is less than 12 gram per deciliter. For pregnant women it is less than 11 gram per deciliter due to hemodilution during pregnancy. And for children 6 to 59 months it is less than 11 gram per deciliter. So, pathophysiology, uh, it can be due to different reasons. The first can be decreased RBC or red blood cells production, which can be due to iron deficiency, B12 or folate deficiency, or bone marrow disorders. Then we have increased RBC destruction or hemolysis, which can be, as in the case of sickle cell disease, thalassemia disorders, or autoimmune hemolytic anemias. Then we have excessive blood loss, which can be acute, trauma, postpartum hemorrhage, or it can be chronic, like in GI bleeding and heavy menses. This leads to reduced oxygen delivery, fatigue, and pallor, compensatory tachycardia, increased cardiac output, tissue hypoxia, which further leads to different organs dysfunction. So, what are the types of anemia? Anemia can be classified in main on the basis of two categories. The first one is based on the RBC size. On the basis of RBC size, we can divide anemia in three types: microcytic, normocytic, and macrocytic. For microcytic anemia, we have MCV value of less than 80, uh, and then in this microcytic anemia, we have iron deficiency anemia, thalassemia disorders, and anemia of chronic diseases. And for normocytic, in which MCV level is 80 to 100, we have hemolytic anemias, anemia of again chronic disease. It can manifest as normocytic anemia and acute blood loss. And then for microcytic, in which MCV value is above 100, we have vitamin B12 deficiency, folate deficiency, and in disorders like alcoholism. What is morphologically classification of anemia? It is shown. This figure is showing the same information diagrammatically. As you can see, we have three morphologies: microcytic, normocytic, and macrocytic. And then we have MCV value of less than 80, 80 to 100, and greater than 100. And then they are showing the disorders for microcytic, like thalassemia, anemia of chronic diseases, iron deficiency anemia, lead poisoning, and sideroblastic anemia. And for normocytic, we have hemolytic anemia, again, anemia of chronic diseases, renal diseases, acute blood loss, bone marrow failure, and aplastic anemia. And for macrocytic anemia, we have megaloblastic anemia, alcoholism, liver diseases, and myelodysplasia. So, what can be types of anemia based on etiology? These can be nutritional deficiency like iron deficiency, folate deficiency, B12 deficiency, hemolytic anemias, aplastic anemias, genetic causes like thalassemia or sickle cell disease. So, for nutritional deficiency, these are the most common causes of anemia worldwide. It relates due to poor intake, malabsorption, or infections like chronic infections or parasitic infestations. Then, for infection and inflammation, we have causes like malaria, helminths infection, tuberculosis, HIV, etc. And then for genetic disorders, we have different type of thalassemias, thalassemia A, B, and then sickle cell disease. For maternal and child factors, we have teenage pregnancies, multiple pregnancies, low birth weight, poor complementary feeding. So, iron deficiency anemia is most common at times. Most common at times in life where iron needs increase, like during menstruation for women, during pregnancy, in early childhood. So, what are the risk factors for anemia? We have risk factors like poor diet, low iron, B12, folate, low socioeconomic status, pregnancy and lactation, as mentioned previously, adolescent part of life, parasitic infections, chronic diseases, heavy menstrual bleeding, and different genetic hemoglobinopathies. This figure is showing some of the common signs and symptoms of anemia. As you can see, it includes fatigue, chest pain, dizziness, heart palpitations, headache, pallor, shortness of breath, tinnitus, and frequent infections. This figure is again showing symptoms of anemia. You can see it starts with the above and goes below. We have symptoms like hair loss, central nervous system issues like fatigue, dizziness, memory problems. For eye, it can lead to yellowing of eye in extreme cases. Then we have muscular weaknesses. For heart, we have chest pain, irregular heartbeats, respiratory symptom. We have shortness of breath. For then we have pale skin, enlarged spleen, and changes stool color in intestinal symptoms. So, how to diagnose anemia? These are some of the laboratory tests, which include CBC, in which there is HB level, MCV, MCHC, reticulocyte count, serum ferritin level, serum iron and TIBC, B12 and folate levels, peripheral smear, hemoglobin electrophoresis, especially which is done for thalassemia. Additionally, stool for occult blood, serum LDH bilirubin level for hemolysis, and bone marrow biopsy if indicated. So, management of anemia, we have management of anemia depending upon what is the cause or what type of anemia the patient has. So, for iron deficiency anemia, uh, usually oral iron therapy or ferrous sulfate is recommended. IV iron when oral iron is not tolerated. And then the main important point is to treat underlying causes. For example, if the main cause is bleeding or if parasitic infections are the cause, so treating the underlying cause is the main way to go. So the figure is showing to treat iron deficiency anemia first while with working with your healthcare provider to find and treat the cause. And if it is only mild iron deficiency anemia, you may need to just increase food intake of iron heavy foods like leafy vegetables, eggs and meats, chicken, steak, etc. And then, if you have moderate or severe iron deficiency anemia, you might need to take iron supplements like pills or iron treated intravenously into your vein, depending upon the level of HB. So for megaloblastic anemia, vitamin B12 injections can be given, oral folic acid is can be given, and again these are some of the common foods in which vitamin B12 is present. So we should focus on them. For example, milk and soy milk products, fish, oyster and clam, poultry, nuts, eggs, meat, and then cheese. In case of hemolytic anemia, again treating underlying cause is the most important factor, followed by steroid for autoimmune causes and splenectomy for very selected cases. For genetic disorders, the management usually is based on regular transfusion, like in the case of thalassemias, iron chelation, and bone marrow transplant like for thalassemia major. So now we come to prevention of anemia, and then first we will apply the three levels of prevention: primary prevention, secondary prevention, and tertiary prevention. For primary prevention, we have nutritional interventions. For example, promotion of iron rich diets, red meat, legumes, green leafy vegetables like spinach, enhancing dietary diversity in our population, especially in females and in young adults and children, multi micronutrient supplementation of iron, folate, vitamin B12, and counseling of the people against tea coffee intake with meals, which is unfortunately very common in our culture and society. Then we have food fortification programs, national fortification of wheat flour with iron and folic acid, salt iodization, which addresses hypothyroidism related anemia, infection control and wash strategies, deworming of the children, for example, given albendazole 6 monthly for children and adolescent in areas where worm infestations are very common, malaria control by giving bed nets and spraying in endemic areas, and improve water, sanitation, and hygiene. So, this is a figure which is showing that iron deficiency is the most common form of anemia in Pakistan. I will talk about more of about the national situation later. So, here are some of the iron-rich foods like spinach, eggs, liver meat, peas, kidney beans, and so on. So, for primary prevention, again, we have reproductive and maternal health interventions like delaying early marriage and early pregnancy, antenatal counseling on adequate nutrition, birth spacing to reduce maternal nutrition depletion, health education and behavior change, to increase awareness on iron rich foods, menstrual hygiene, and risk of heavy bleeding, and especially school based nutrition programs to enhance the education of children and and changing their behavior. Then we have addressing social determinants like improving female literacy rate and empowering decision making in the family, and to promote food security initiatives. After primary prevention, we come to secondary prevention. The main goal of secondary prevention is to detect anemia early and treat before complications occur. At number one, we have screening programs, routine HB testing at antenatal clinic during each trimester, school health programs, especially for adolescent girls, and under five child HB testing at clinics and preconception clinics. Targeted population screening. High risk groups we have like pregnant women, children under 5, women with heavy menstrual bleeding, adolescent, refugees, and displaced population. So these should be targeted especially for population level screening. Diagnostic workup. CBC, ferritin, peripheral smear, iron studies, and stool for parasite. Early detection of hemoglobinopathies through carrier screening. So these are the some of the very important tests and diagnostic workup in case of the anemias. Then we have early treatment. It includes oral iron therapy for mild to moderate anemias, deworming after positive stool test, and then treatment of underlying infections like malaria, TB, HIV, etc. And in the end, referral to specialist care for non responsive cases, followed by monitoring and follow up HB level after 4 to 6 weeks of therapy, tracking pregnant women through antenatal care registers, and again school health record maintenance and following up of the children. Now we come to tertiary prevention. The goal is to reduce complication, improve function, and prevent long-term disability. At number one, we have management of severe anemia. Like again, we have mentioned it before, like blood transfusion in severe life-threatening cases, parenteral IV iron for intolerance or malabsorption, and management of heart failure or shock if present. And then long term care of chronic anemia, it includes thalassemia management like regular transfusions, iron chelation therapy, screening and counseling for family. And then for sickle cell disease, we have hydroxyurea, pneumococcal prophylaxis, and pain crisis management. Preventive complications include early treatment of cardiac complication like tachycardia, heart failure, nutritional rehabilitation in children with severe acute malnutrition, management of cognitive or development delays in children. And then for rehabilitation and support, we have nutritional support program for mothers and infants, community-based rehabilitation for chronically ill children, psychosocial supports for families with genetic disorders, social protection program for low resource households. And at the end, we have health system strengthening to building capacity for laboratory diagnosis and establishing referral pathways. Then we have global burden of anemia. Unfortunately, 1.8 billion people are affected by anemia in some way all around the world. Most common nutritional deficiency worldwide is presence of anemia, highest burden in South Asia, sub-Saharan Africa, and the leading causes include iron deficiency about 50%, infectious diseases, and maternal nutrition problems. And then anemia contributes to 20% of maternal deaths, reduced cognitive development, and decreased economic productivity. So these are some of the effects of resulting from global burden of anemia. This is the figure which is showing the share of reproductive age of women who have anemia in 2023. And the age include is 15 to 49% with anemia, and as you can see in the figure, unfortunately, Pakistan is among the highest burden countries, followed by India. So the South Asia part, even in among the all Asian countries, the South Asia is standing out. And then we have relatively low prevalence in North and South America, and then we have very high prevalence in African countries. So, share of women of reproductive age who have anemia. So, unfortunately, in South Asia, we have nearly above 50% of all the women of reproductive age who have anemia, followed by sub-Saharan African, who are even there. The trend of anemia is slightly on the decrease, and whereas in South Asia the trend is increasing. So in sub-Saharan Africa we have the percentage of women which is below 40% now, and the world average is slightly equal to 30%. And North America is very below Europe and Central Asia and Latin America. They are fairly below world average. So, for national burden, Pakistan is among one of the most common countries affected in the world by anemia. National Nutritional Survey found out that children under 5 years old, about 40% of them were anemic. For adolescent girls, about 50% of them were anemic. And for pregnant women, 40 to 50% of them were anemic, which is unfortunately very high percentage. So, for Pakistan particularly, causes include poor diet diversity, especially infections in children, worms, malaria in some regions, early marriage and pregnancy, high rates of iron deficiency, limited screening and supplementation program. So now we come to recent advances. So this is an initiative by WHO accelerating anemia reduction, a global health priority for 2030. So this is an initiative by World Health Organization, UNICEF, scaling up for nutrition and nutrition for growth Paris 2025. So this is one of the agendas of 2030 SDG achieving to accelerate anemia reduction. So this is a study which was done in December 2024, and it was published in January 2025. It says recent updates in the management of iron deficiency anemia in Indian patients, literature review, and expert opinion. So, according to this, iron deficiency anemia is a global issue. An expert panel of different obstetric and gynecological specialists reviewed the literature and proposed recommendation on iron deficiency anemia's prevalence, diagnosis, management, and challenges such as healthcare access, patient education, and awareness. Management strategies for iron deficiency anemia include dietary adjustments, lifestyle changes, alongside pharmacological treatment, including oral and parenteral iron therapy. Oral iron, though accessible, can cause gastrointestinal side effects, and prevailing misconceptions about its impact on fetal growth affect adherence. Intravenous iron administration should be considered for patients who experience intolerance, poor adherence, or lack of efficacy with oral iron. Ferric carboxymaltose, a newer iron formulation, is gaining popularity due to its rapid iron replenishment, efficacy, and safety, single infusion convenience, and cost effectiveness in treating pregnant women. Public health initiative in India like National Nutritional Anemia Control Program and Anemia Mukt Bharat aim to reduce iron deficiency anemia through supplementation program and education. However, challenges like low adherence to iron supplementation, parasitic infection, and micronutrient deficiencies remain. As we can see, India is suffering from the same issues like Pakistan, and the recommendations of and the level of anemia is also similar in the children and at population level. So now we come to multiple choice questions. So now we have first question. A 14-year-old girl in low income district presents for a school health screening. She reports fatigue, dizziness, poor concentration, and heavy menstrual period. Her hemoglobin level is 9.8 gram per deciliter. The district shows high rates of adolescent anemia due to poor diet diversity and low iron intake. Which public health primary prevention strategy would be most appropriate at population level? A. Monthly blood transfusion program for adolescent. B. Weekly iron folic supplementation through schools. C. Referring all anemic adolescent to tertiary hospital. D. Initiating bone marrow biopsy screening for all students. E. Restricting school sports to reduce dizziness in anemic girls.
B.
Yes, the answer is B. Weekly iron folic acid supplementation through schools. Now we have a second MCQ. A pregnant woman at 14 weeks gestation attends her first antenatal visit. She reports no major symptoms, but the area has a high prevalence of iron deficiency. The national guidelines recommend early detection of anemia to reduce maternal complication. Which action best represents secondary prevention? Giving iron routinely in first trimester. B. Conducting hemoglobin screening during antenatal care. C. Providing nutritional education only. D. Treating all pregnant women with antimalarials. Or E. Starting blood transfusion if HB level is less than 12 gram per deciliter.
B.
Yes. So it includes the answer is conducting hemoglobin screening during antenatal care. So now we come to third MCQ. A 3-year-old child from an urban slum presents with pallor and poor appetite. Stool test shows hookworm infection. The child's mother says food is limited and the child mostly eat tea with bread. Lab tests reveal microcytic hypochromic anemia. What is the most likely primary mechanism causing the child's anemia? Increased RBC destruction due to malaria, decreased RBC production due to iron deficiency, bone marrow suppression due to lead exposure, autoimmune hemolysis triggered by infection, or vitamin B12 toxicity interfering with hemoglobin.
B.
Yes. So the answer is B, that it decreased RBC production due to iron deficiency. A rural district hospital reports delays in identifying anemia in pregnant women. Many women present with severe anemia in third trimester. The district wants to strengthen its health system to reduce complication and maternal morbidity. Which intervention would most uh, likely to prevent early detection? Uh, which intervention would most improve early detection at system level? Introducing point of care HB analyzers in antenatal clinic, providing ambulance services to transport severe cases, increasing the number of nurses in labor room, expanding blood bank storage capacity, training staffs in managing postpartum hemorrhage. So the answer is A. Introducing point of care HB analyzers in antenatal care clinic, which can provide quick results at that time. A 22-year-old woman presents with hemoglobin 6.5 uh, 6.5 deciliter and signs of cardiac stress. She has been chronically anemic with repeated hospital visits. The district public health officer is asked to categorize interventions according to level of prevention, which is an example of tertiary prevention for this patient. Weekly iron supplementation, mass media campaigns promoting iron rich foods, blood transfusion, and management of heart failure, routine screening at community level, or school based deworming programs.
C.
Yes, the answer is C, blood transfusion and management of heart failure. A newborn presents with low birth weight and pallor. The mother was anemic throughout her pregnancy. This pattern is common in the community. Which public health strategy would most effectively break the intergenerational cycle of anemia? Providing neonatal blood transfusion or in all low birth weight babies, screening only the grandmother for genetic causes of anemia, introducing adolescent girls weekly supplementation programs, restricting pregnancies to women over age 30, increasing cesarean section rates to prevent blood loss.
C.
Yes, the answer is C, introducing adolescent girls weekly supplementation programs, especially through school health programs. A country with high rates of iron deficiency anemia is evaluating national intervention. The Ministry of Health wants a cost effective population wide strategy that does not depend on individual compliance. Which intervention best fits this requirement? A. Oral iron therapy for all adults monthly, wheat flour fortification with iron and folic acid, free iron syrups for selected urban schools, mandatory testing for all workers annually, offering iron infusion IV in all primary care centers.
B.
Yes, wheat flour fortification with iron folic acid is the most effective, cost effective population wide strategy. A 30-year-old woman presents with fatigue and glossitis. Her CBC shows macrocytic anemia. She is not pregnant and has no chronic disease. Dietary history reveals extremely low consumption of animal source food. Which deficiency best explains her lab finding? Iron deficiency, vitamin B12 deficiency, acute blood loss, hemolytic anemia, or thalassemia major?
B. B.
Yes, it is macrocytic anemia due to vitamin B12 deficiency. A refugee camp reports increasing anemia among children aged 2 to 10 years. A survey shows high infection rates with hookworm and poor sanitation. Which public health intervention is most appropriate and immediate? Starting iron transfusion camps, deworming all children with albendazole, screening for thalassemia carriers, introducing universal B12 injections, or hospitalizing all moderate to severe cases.
B.
Yes. So the most effective and appropriate public health intervention is deworming all children with albendazole. In a rural community, women commonly drink tea immediately after meals. A nutritional assessment shows high prevalence of anemia despite adequate food availability. What should be the primary health education message? Avoid eating fruits with meals, reduce water intake after meals, avoid tea, coffee immediately after meals because they inhibit iron absorption, replace rice with wheat based foods, or limit vegetable intake to reduce fiber content. Yes, to avoid tea, coffee immediately after meals because they lead to inhibition of iron absorption. So this is the MCQ key. This is the channel where this video will be uploaded. And thank you very much for listening.
This is a very nice presentation. The best part is that you have chosen very the clinical scenario